Hello, welcome to CIS 137, Class 11. So the function of good software is to make the complex appear to be simple. It's Grady Booch. Grady Booch is one of the guys behind UML, and he's big into design patterns. But the idea here is, you could have something look really simple on the front for the user, but it has a lot of moving parts in the back end. And the simpler it is for the user, generally the more moving parts there are on the back end that the user never sees. So uh, so it can lead people to think that your software is just really simple. It's just showing something on the screen. But as we all know, it's a lot more complicated than that. So, all right, today we're going to spend all the 20s reviewing project part 2. So basically, I'm going to go through a live coding example uh, of how to do project part 2 and all the pieces involved. So we're going to go over how to do the React router DOM again. We're going to add content to home and about pages, and we're going to add content to the events page. So I'll be going through each of these pieces one by one, and I'll start with the project I have on for part 1 on GitHub. Now, if you didn't complete project part 2, or if you want a better grade for project part 2, you can basically resubmit project part 2. I'll be assigning project part 3 on Wednesday. If you do everything that's involved in project part 2 with project part 3, then you can earn basically up to a B on project part 2 if you have all the parts inside of project part 3. But make sure you submit to both assignments, so that way I know that's what you're going for, and Blackboard will present it as a grading opportunity for me. All right, so let's add React Router DOM to our project. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to check out the project part 1 from GitHub. Let's actually not do it through here. Let's do it through GitHub itself. Here we go. We're going to go ahead and clone this. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to pull up my terminal. I go ahead and clone this. All right, I'm going to change directory into that folder, and first I'm going to run is yarn, and I'll do yarn start. I have to download all the packages, all the dependencies, everything that's included inside of Create React App basically has to be downloaded and installed. So that's basically what yarn is doing. So wait for that, and I have WebStorm fired up, ready to go. So once that project's done, well, I can open it now. It'll be fine. Let's go open it. First piece we're going to work on with this project upgrade is we're going to add the React router to our project. Now, right now, this is almost done. Let's let this finish because we're going to use another yarn command in order to add React router. If we look at React router's website, what we want is React router DOM, and DOM has to be specified because React router works with both React Native and React for web. React Native means it's for mobile devices. So React has a capability to produce native iOS and Android code. So that's what React Native is. But regular React is for web, and DOM stands for Document Object Model. It's basically HTML in the browser. So React Router DOM is for the web. If we actually click into that, we can see it says use npm install -- save React Router DOM. Then with the module bundler like Webpack, use as you would anything else. The UMD is also available on Unpackage. You can find the library on window.reactrouter.dom. So none of this actually applies to us. So whenever we see npm install on any of these projects, we're using something on top of npm called yarn. So we'd always use yarn add. And with yarn add, you don't need this -- save either. So it's just yarn add React Router DOM. Let's check on that progress. All right. Got an out of date message, but that's okay. If you get that out of date message, you don't need to worry about that. Okay. So this project, if we just run it, you can see where it's at. So I ran yarn start, and the project is, these links don't really work. They're just anchors, regular anchors, and the page is just the hero image. So we can go ahead and stop it with Control-C. And we're going to add React Router DOM. So yarn add React Router DOM. Okay, now we have React Router DOM in our project. And really, the three links we should have are home, about, events. Let me make this text bigger too. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and import. We can change these links too. So the home page is going to be our root directory, just the slash. And we see we have the slash up here as well. So we have it so we can click on our Sylvan Heights Swim Club H1 inside the hero header and navigate to the home page. Or we have a home right here, explicit home. And the about we'll just make that /about and events/events. All right, so let's import the pieces we need from React Router. We're going to import browser router. Okay, where we left off, I was wrapping the browser router around the JSX. So now we have browser router around all of the JSX. So that's the parent element of everything inside of here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to insert the route components. So we're going to go ahead and put our routes underneath here. And set the paths of each of these routes to match what we have in our home, about, and events. It's going to be exact match, and the component it's going to render would be home component. We don't have a home component yet, so we're going to go ahead and create one. Now we could create it in a separate file, but for now I'm going to do it in the same file that we have here, and then we will move it to another file later. We can say class home extends component. Remember, we can do the stateless functional components as well. If we just call function home and have it take props, we can have that just return some JSX. Might as well surround this with parentheses and put it on its own line. Be consistent. So we don't even need the props because we're not using them yet. Okay, and then we will add about. I'll make an exact match. And we'll use the about component. Placeholder in here. Last, we'll add the events component. Okay, so we have our 3 routes set up. If we try to run this now, see what happens. All right, so maybe I'll get another 30 seconds in here. Okay, so I wrapped everything with browser router, and now we have an issue where it says router may only have one child element. 25 stack frames were collapsed. So what this is saying is that inside of browser router, it can only have one child, and we have 4 children. We have the div and 3 routes. So we're going to go ahead and make this all one child by wrapping everything inside of here, inside of a div. Divs are good for wrapping stuff. I'm going to bump these out. Save and we go over here, and here's our page again. If we click home, about, events. So this is technically working right now, but you'll notice every time we click something, the site is actually doing a new request. But we want, for a single page app, we want the app to not make a new request every time we click on something. We just want the page to be rendered differently every time we click on something. That makes sense. So we don't want it to make an actual request to, get the new page. We want it to just navigate to the new page. So we're going to use link to do that. So replace the A with link. WebStorm is smart enough to replace the slash link at the end if you replace just the A. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you have to go over here and change it to link as well. And instead of having href and link, you say link to. We're going to do it with these two as well. And we'll do this header up here as well. Now if we save, filed successfully, we come over here, we hit about, events, home. You see it's not making an actual request. It's not doing that reload symbol here. It's just navigating without making a new request. So the advantage of that is if we set some state like that, that state won't get reset each time we Okay, so sorry, my internet keeps going down, but I'm going to record the rest of this video. As you see, I'm going to append it to the video that I was recording on Collaborate, and everything will be fine. Okay, so this next part, we did all this. So we added React Router DOM. We imported the pieces. We surrounded JSX with browser router component. We insert router components. We inserted the link components. So this is all good to go. Alright, so in our home route, we must show the hours of operation, welcome paragraphs, membership costs, and at least 3 images. Let's go ahead and do that. So inside of home, we need the hours of operation, the welcome paragraphs, and the membership costs, and at least 3 images. So let's do that one by one. So let's break that up into pieces just for fun. So hours of operation, we will just return a div, and we'll just make this really generic. Open Monday, open Tuesday through Sunday, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then inside of home, we will add the hours of operation. Next, we need those welcome paragraphs. So welcome intro, so that little double welcomes, and we will add paragraphs in here. Now, ideally I would be able to access the internet right now, but I don't have internet access, so I'm going to have to add some fake text in here, and we'll just put some text in. And we can surround our paragraphs with /p, or p, and then /p. And we'll go ahead and add the welcome intro to our home. So we're just going to break this all into components. Next, we need the, let's pull it up. We need the membership costs. And this doesn't need to be perfect. We're just going to we're just gonna put a generic number in here. So I mean, these don't need to be super accurate. They don't need to be perfect. I'm not looking for your content creation abilities. I'm not looking for your absolute best styling capabilities at this time. Although styling really, it does count as part of your grade. But the content, just saying, the membership is a certain dollar amount. That's all I was looking for. So I'll add the membership costs on here. And that'll be it for now. Let's go ahead and save that. And we'll look at our home page. And now we have all the content we needed on the home page. Oh, we also need at least 3 images. So let's go ahead and add those. Although I still don't have access to the internet, I'm going to skip that part. Okay, I do have access. So let me reconnect to Blackboard as well. Okay, go on images. So we're going to go ahead and steal a few summary fun pictures. I'm going to put all my images inside of a subfolder inside the source directory. We'll call this one sun. And we'll steal this sun as well. Why not? Or this summer. This summer looks good. And we'll add an image of someone swimming. So we're going to just go ahead and straight up add these to our home content. So in order to add them, we have them inside of our images subdirectory here. And we have this logo.png and this pool.jpg. The pool is being used by our our header, as you see here, background URL pool.jpg, 50% no repeat, but we want to move it into the images. And the logo is actually being used by the fave icon, but I don't think it's actually being used inside of our app here. So if I right click and do find usages, it's found no usages. If I do pool.jpg, then it found the usage in here. Now I can go ahead and move the pool.jpg into our images directory, but in order to do so, I'd also have to update this URL. But if I go here, right click, refactor, move, and go ahead and move it to the images directory, press OK. We see it popped up here into the images directory, and all the references were updated. So I don't need to do anything to this background URL. It automatically updated. Might as well move this as well. Okay, so now we have our images inside of an images directory. We need to import those images to use them. So we need to give our image a name, so we're going to call it, image swimmer from /images/swimmer.jpg, and we'll go ahead and import all of them. Image summer, and last we're going to do the, which one was it? Summer fun. What did I call it? Let's see. Sun. So on our home page, which is down here, we're going to add the 3 images. So image source equals image summer. I'll give it an alt as well, summer. And we'll add the last one, swimmer equals swimmer. Oops. Now let's check out what it's looking like now. So we have a huge sun, even bigger swimmer. There he is. He's filling up our browser, and then some. So let's make some modifications. So we're gonna make like an image gallery, or well, let's actually add the class to each of these images instead. So gallery image will be on each of these images. And if we go to app.css, we can add a .gallery image. And here we'll just set the width and height, but really we'll just set the max width to 150 pixels. So now we have 3 more reasonably sized images. Alright, so that's our home page, and let's move our home page out into its own component. So we could try right-clicking and refactor and move or extract, but this doesn't really work with React and WebStorm at this time. unfortunately. So we have to do this a little bit more manually. So we can create a home JavaScript file. We'll add it to Git, that's fine. And we'll pull the pieces out that we want to use for home. So all of these, go ahead and pull out, bring it over to home. But we also need to import React. We need to import the images that we're using down here. And I think that's all. We don't need to import anything else. And we need to import React. Could import component as well, but really we just need to do import React from React. If we left this out, it would throw an error saying that you need to import React in order to use JSX. And I can show you that in a second. So next piece, so we have actually a style defined for home. So home has this gallery image inside of app CSS. So this gallery image we could move to home CSS, or we can move to index.css. To keep things simple, I'm just going to move this to index.css. So anything inside of index.css is kind of like global. So that means that this will be applied to every page, every component. App.css only gets loaded when the app JS file is loaded, presumably. So everything inside app.css is very specific to the app.js file. But everything inside index.css is global. And technically the way we have it written up right now, everything inside of app.css is global as well, since app contains all of the routes. So app you can think of app.css or app.js as a global container too in this particular project. Alright, so our home page is completely done. Home is not defined. Let's import home. So if we try to import home from home.js, this is not going to work because it says default export is not declared in imported module. So when it says something like that, it's because all we have in here are functions, but we need to export something. The easiest way to export something in ES6 is to add an export default in front of it. If we're using ES5 or even ES 2015, we need to use modules.exports equals, module.exports equals function home. But since we're using ES6, we're going to go ahead and do export default function. So in order to use this local file, we need to use /home. And our home page works again. So let's go to the next. So the about route, we need a history paragraph, the board members or staff bios. We need to show at least 3 formatted on cards with images. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and move our about into a separate file. So imported about. Let's go over here and make sure we do export default function about. So these are still stateless functional components, so we're just using that. And I'll show you now. Here's what the error you'll get when you don't import React. So React must be in scope when using JSX. So that means we must have this import React from React. Once we do that, our about page works again. So our about page needs, it needs a history paragraph and 3 cards of staff bios. So let's break that out into components. So we're going to make a function for history paragraph, call it history text, and we're just going to return a div or even a p. We'll return p's wrapped in a div. History paragraph number 1 and history paragraph number 2. The about is going to have history text, and it'll have the staff bios. So let's break the staff bios down. So staff bios are going to have 3 members in them, and each of them are going to be in their own card. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a break that down, so we'll have the staff bios container here. But what this is going to actually return is going to be 3 cards. So we'll create a staff card as well. So now we're actually going to use props. So the staff card is going to have an image and we'll return this all in a div. It's going to have an image and it's going to have a name and a title. So let's go grab an image for each of these. So we're just going to look for people. I haven't searched for a person in a long time. Alright, let's grab this person. Here's some good ones. We'll grab him next. Go ahead and put him in the images directory. Let's grab this guy. He looks happy. And let's see who else we can grab. Let's grab Hermione. Why not? Okay, so each of these is going to have an image and title and the name. So we can put name. It's give them a name and then a title. Go to CEO and the image. We're going to import. So import we'll call it image person one, or sorry, staff one from /images/staff1.jpg, and we'll go ahead and import the other ones here as well. All right. So first one's going to be image staff one. And we'll go ahead and slash that, close it off. And we'll do the same thing 2 more times. Just make up some names here. And give them some titles. See, the staff card is not rendering anything yet, so it's not going to show anything. So we need to add that. So we're going to use the props of the image, title, and the name on each of these staff cards. So we're going to use the figure on this, just to be HTML5. And this will have the image. So I'm going to show image tag source equals props dot image. And we can put the alt as their props dot name. And then the figure caption will be their, we'll put strong name on there. And their title. Alright, so let's see what that looks like. See the staff bios, we haven't included them into our default about container. So we're going to add the staff bios here. And now we have 3 people. And we saw this is huge. So just like the gallery images, we're going to add a class to here. So we're going to add a class here and make it called staff image. We're going to go ahead and add this to, I'm going to take this out of index.css. We're going to move this all into app.css. We're just going to keep it all here for now. It's going to look exactly like gallery image. So there we go. So now we have our 3 bios, and they're technically on cards. We could card it up a little bit better by adding a class to it. Let's do that a little bit better. And we'll just keep on adding to app.css. for these, we'll make them an inline box, inline block. Check that out and make them horizontal. We're going to make the staff image, it has a max height or max width of 150. We're gonna give it a max height as well, 150. Shrink Hermione up a little bit. And we'll actually increase the width. Okay. Staff card, inline block. And we're going to give it a border. We'll make it a 5 pixel dashed, or maybe solid crimson. Because I saw that pop up. Okay. Then we're going to add padding. And we can go ahead and center the image. So we're going to center everything in here. So we're going to text align, center. And that centers everything. And there we have our cards. So we can make them a little bit better. We could add a height and width in these as well. So our max height is 150 pixels in here. We could set a min height, or we could just set a straight up height. So we're going to say this will be 200 pixels tall, and I'll have a width of, there we have, we'll just add 250 pixels to that. And now it's acting a little funny. That's okay. We'll just keep on playing with it. So let's see what we have going on here. So messing with it back and forth like that is a little hard. So we're going to go ahead and inspect it here. And I have this set up so it pops outside of the browser window, but generally be docked either to the bottom here or to the right. We'll just keep it on the bottom. Now we can, click on our staff card and we can mess with the CSS over here. The thing is, these are not lining up right now. So let's make those line up. So I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do that right now, but we're going to figure it out. So the figure is has a height and a width, and it's getting pushed down because the image is smaller than this image. So if we look at the last one, it all fills out nicely, but if we look at the first two, these images are floating to the top. Okay, so let's see what we have here. We have inline block. There's a couple things we can do here. One of the easiest things we could fix is we could just set a straight size for these images and just have them messed up, which is fine actually. So instead of saying max width and max height for the image, we could just say width and height. And see, the problem with this is that they're all going to be stretched in weird ways, but that's fine. Ultimately, we would have the capability, to modify the image, in Photoshop or something like that, and set the exact dimensions. So we would have control over these images. These are just filler images, so this is okay. And then underneath the staff image and the staff card, so let's say, it's actually fixed it pretty good. So let's leave that as is. So set the width and the height. We can make those squares if we wanted to. We'll just do that. And then for the staff card, the figure caption, we want to have a padding above it, so it's not so close to the image. So we're going to do a margin top, and we'll just make that 1 EM. So there we go. That's the staff bio cards. That's all we need there. If we wanted the title to show up below the name, then we can add a break in here. Now in JSX, in HTML you could just have a break like this, just BR with angled braces around it. But you'll see element BR is not closed, and then there'll be all kinds of red lines in here. So in JSX you actually need to have a self-closing tag. So it needs to do the / angle bracket. And there we have our staff bio cards. Okay, so the about page is ready. So you can make these cards a lot fancier, but not looking for that right now. It's fine if they don't look so fancy. The last page we'll do is the events, which is a harder page because it requires JSON. So let's start by making a separate file for events. So again, none of these components have state. We don't have any state, so we don't need to worry about creating classes at this time. All we need to do is stateless functional components, and that makes it nice and easy for these moving the stuff around. Do export default function events, and then back in app.js we need to import events. Alright, so let's make sure it's working still. Looks good. Let's make sure it's still running. Okay. So for the events page, we need to use a JSON array to store a list of events. Each event should have string values for at least the time, the title, and description. And use the map function to create cards for each event. Display the event cards in a list. So let's look back at our about.js real quick. So we have a card in here, and we have the bios here, and we're passing information to each card. So we're going to take this one step farther. We're going to create JSON, which is going to contain the values we see here, and whatever values we need for the event. And it's going to produce these 3 lines by using the map function. So we're just bringing this up one more level. Now we could have, we could do our events just like these staff cards, but really what I'm trying to get you to do with this JSON is to get used to working with JSON so that you can eventually interact with a REST API using JSON. So how do we form this JSON? So we're going to go ahead and create this inside of our events.js. We're going to create a just a regular JavaScript object array. So we're going to call this events. So we're going to say const, or we can say let events equal. I'm going to make that let a const. So let means it can change. Const means we're not going to change it. So I'm going to make an array. So that's going to be the square braces. And I'm going to put our events inside of here, inside of curly braces. So these are going to be objects inside of array. So this is an array of objects. So inside of the, we need string values for at least the time, the title, and description. So we need time. We can say July. Today is the 10th. We'll say July 11th at 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. Title will be Tuesday barbecue. And description. We barbecue on Tuesday. Come eat some food. Okay, so that's our first event. So each of our events is going to be inside these curly braces. So we're going to create our next event. Just pick a random day, August 3rd at 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Title: August Swim Fest, or we'll just call it Swim Fest. Description: to come do some swimming. And last, what day is Labor Day? Let's find that out. September 4th. Keep a consistent title. Closing day. For all these descriptions, we definitely need exclamation points at the end. It's very exciting stuff. Okay, so now we have our JSON up here, and actually to make it proper JSON, we would need to surround each of these with quotes as well. But I'm not too worried about that for this. Ultimately, with JavaScript, it's easy to switch between the two, so this is fine for JSON. I also used double quotes in here, but I wanted to use single quotes, so I'm going to go ahead and do this and Control R and replace all the double quotes with single quotes. We're going to get rid of that. So now we have our events in JSON, and we're going to do a similar thing that we did with the about. We're going to make the cards. So we're going to make an event card that will take props. Now these props are going to have time, title, and description. So just like the about, we're going to reference those in here. So we're going to add a time after this when, and we'll add props dot time. Oh, you know what? I'm not doing the return here. So let's do that return. So I could say function, instead of saying function event card, I could say let event card equal props and then arrow. And then, you know, it could do it this way, but we still need the return in there. So what we're going to actually do is stay with what we were working with and return and surround everything by parentheses. When what, or sorry, let's actually put an H2 up here with the title. You know, all this styling, you could do it completely different as long as it has the same information available. And then we'll put a description here. in a P. And we could give this a class name as well. Okay, so we have our event card, we have our event JSON. We need to hook these together, and we're going to hook them together inside of our events, our events component down here. So before our return, we're going to create our events by using the map function. So we're going to say let events, call it events display equal events. So we have our events array up here. What we call is events data, just to not use events too much. So events data dot map, and we're going to pass the each event to a callback here, which is just going to, so we're going to use the arrow function to specify the callback. So this is the callback so far, and we need to put a value in here that's going to return. And it's going to return the event card with the time, title, and description set. So time equals event.time, title equals event.title, and description equals event.description. And see, and we need the slash, we need the closing slash. You see this gets a little long. It's past this line. So we should break this up into multiple lines. So unfortunately, we're going to have to, let's see what the best way of doing that is. We could, if we do something like this, I think this will work just fine. Yep, that works. Alright, so now we mapped our events from up here into individual cards here, and we're assigning the result to this variable here. So we can actually just use that variable inside of our JSX down here. And now we have Tuesday barbecue win, July 11th, swim fest win, closing day. So let's tidy these up a little bit. So for this one, we'll create a separate CSS file just so you can see how that would work. And we'll go ahead and import it. So import events.css. We're not going to import anything from events.css. We're just going to import events.css directly, and we're going to use the values down here. So class name, we're going to use capital events. Now, this is a way to separate the CSS out. So when we load all this CSS, it's going to apply to all the elements on the page, not just the ones inside the events component. So we need to be careful about naming and scoping of the CSS. So if we had another header inside of our events page, it would be affected by this app.css header. So just like the events, anything we put inside the events.css is going to affect the app page as well. So in order to kind of segment these the CSS, we're going to put the class name that it should apply to inside the CSS names. So /events dot events would represent the events in just the events page. So this breaks the CSS convention of using only lowercase letters and dashes, but it's because we're naming it after the class, after the component itself, to say, this CSS applies only to the matching component. So having the capital letter actually indicates that that's what we're doing. So the convention is to have a capital letter if we want to segment the CSS to only apply to our events component. So in this case, the events, we're going to go ahead and, let's make sure we have this all set up right. So we have event card in here as well. We're going to put that in here. So for instance, we could have, events card, which would follow this convention of segmenting the CSS as well. So the events card, we're going to make that an inline block. So now if we check our events and we see cannot resolve events.css, go back to events.js, it's because we did import events.css. We need to import /events. So now we see each one's 1, 2, 3. But I kind of liked it better when it was displaying it as a block. So we want to center these though, so we're going to do margin 0 auto on the events page, and maybe that'll center it. No, that's right, we just need to do, so each of these divs is going to span the entire page left to right, because of a blocking element in the box model we know from last class is going to go from complete left to right. So instead we are going to what's the best way to do that? So inside the events card, we're going to make it centered, and that would push it all to the center here. And we can put a border around it. We can try one big solid black, see how that looks. Oops. And that looks pretty fine. And then we can put a margin around them as well. Now the width is not matching what we're expecting for the content, but we could set this width explicitly. So this says 300 pixels each card. But now we have the problem, now these divs are no longer centered. So let's center them up here again. See if we do text align center, what happens? Nothing. So say if we say margin 0 auto, what do we have? Nothing. So let's do the margin 0.5. That'll be top to bottom, and then left to right we'll put on auto. There we go. So we're centering each card by setting the margin. This is the top bottom margin. So above and below it'll have half a EM, and then left and right will be auto. So it'll use the remaining space on left and right in order to center these elements. Make these a little bit bigger. So now we have our event cards. See anything else we need to do? Nope. So let's check our site again. Our about, our home, our events. We can shrink that. And this is our site. It doesn't look very good right now. To get full style points, they need to be styled. maybe center these paragraphs, or at least push them over off this edge, center these down below, and do something with this text as well, push it over, do these images a little differently, maybe embed them throughout, and style it up a little bit. Styling part is all personal preference at this point. It does involve tweaking, and it's actually more time consuming than the rest of the project, in my opinion, because it's just you can spin your wheels forever on style, and if you don't have a great artistic eye, then you're going to be tweaking it forever. Even if you have a great artistic eye, then you're going to be tweaking it forever to try to get it to match your vision. So styling, it can be fun and it can be tedious. I'm just going to leave it out for now. We're going to later on, in a later project, we're going to style up our content a little bit more. But for now, this is good. So, all right, that is how you do course project part 2 from course project part 1. I'm going to not check in this code yet. Well, I'll go ahead and commit this, but it's not going to be up on GitHub yet. But you can go ahead and follow along and produce course project part 2 with your code. Make sure you follow everything exactly with all the capitalization and everything. And then, I missed some files. So you get status. We see all these images are missing. So I can either add them here, or I can, select them all here and go to Git, add. Get status, and we see these are all new files. I'll go ahead and commit them. Alright, get status, and we see it's clean now. So I'm ahead of my remote, so I could git push, but I'm not going to yet. I'll do that later. Okay, so please hit me up if you have any questions, and I'll be on Slack. But again, you can turn this in later with your course project 3. We'll talk about course project part 3 on Wednesday, what's entitled with that. But if you have the routes and everything in your course project part 3, go ahead and submit that course project part 2 as well, and you'll get up to a B on course project part 2 if you haven't submitted it yet, or if you have a lower grade than a B there. Alright, I'll see y'all on Wednesday.